This is Linux in Laws, a podcast on topics around free and open source software, any associated contraband, communism, the revolution in general, and whatever else fancies your tickle. Please note that this and other episodes may contain strong language, offensive humor, and other, certainly not politically correct language. You have been warned. Our parents insisted on this disclaimer. Happy, Mum? Thus, the content is not suitable for consumption in the workplace, especially when played back on a speaker in an open plan office or similar environments. Any minors under the age of 35, or any pets, including fluffy little killer bunnies, your trusted guide dog, unless on speed, and cute T-Rexes or other associated dinosaurs.
This is Linux in Laws, episode 79.
Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages and adventures of a podcast called Linux in Laws, a podcast destined to go where no podcast has gone before.
Chris, how are things?
Welcome, people, first of all. Things
Welcome,
are not
of
too
course,
bad.
yes, always.
Of course. Martin, how did FOSDEM treat you?
Yeah, good, interesting, very busy, many people, quite impressed. Even though it wasn't the FOSDEM I remember somehow, I don't know what happened.
Okay.
There,
I understood that some co-hosts dragged you over there kicking and screaming.
No, I made my own way there, actually.
Fair enough.
You didn't come all the way here. So, yeah.
True. And of course, this is a very shameless teaser because, as a matter of fact, as hinted at the last episode, if you are listening to this, FOSDEM is over. Same goes for the previous episode, of course. And we actually had a slot on Saturday afternoon. Links, of course, will be in the show notes. So if you can't get to sleep at 2 in the morning, this is probably the video recording you want to watch.
It's a bit difficult watching a video recording while you sleep, but hey, I think there's audio as well, right? Yeah, so.
If you can't get to sleep, exactly.
Okay. Yes.
So if you're suffering from insomnia like I am, you simply watch that video stream, that video recording. Yeah.
Or you get up at 5:30 in the morning and do something else, whatever you were doing. I can't remember now. Let's not go there. Anyway, it was good to meet Ken and Luna and various other listeners and people
exactly.
like that.
Indeed, very much so, yes. And if you were at FOSDEM and didn't talk to us, I hope you sat in the audience. And if you didn't, please watch the replay. If you have any questions, the email address is, of course, feedback@linuxinlaws.eu. And taking a look at some of the server stats after FOSDEM, I noticed quite a hike in website traffic, as in people accessing our website.
Is this anything to do with the promise of free beer at all?
I reckon I reckon these are all people that cannot sleep at night. So
okay. I thought they came for the free beer offer that you made at the end of the session.
I know, but we gave away a beer, yeah. Exactly. But this is not purely about FOSDEM, but rather about, Martin, what is today's episode about?
Today is about open source software in space.
Yes, or as it is known among friends, Space, the final frontier.
To infinity and beyond, whichever your age is. Indeed.
So
yes.
So what's up with open source in space, Martin?
Why don't you tell us why we come to this episode? Actually, because there was a trigger right last year when it was sort of made public knowledge that the rover runs various bits of open source software.
Exactly, and for those people who have been living under a rock for the last 10 plus years, the rover, of course, is that autonomous Mars vehicle that NASA actually has put on the planet. As part of their mission to check out the planet if there are any bars that have been
Find the
unknown
Martian,
so far.
surely. Yeah.
Find a Martian, maybe, or some for lack of a proper Martian, finding some rudimentary form of life, with or without proper intelligence.
Yep. So why is this important that the rover runs on open source software?
Well, that's a very good question, Martin, because as we all know, open source software has certain advantages.
Yeah. Well, why specifically for a Mars rover, right?
Well, many people can look at it, many people can contribute, and of course, many people can check out the software itself and kind of go bug hunting.
Okay, so is there a GitHub repo for this?
There is actually. The JPL put out a challenge, as in the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Of course, links will be in the show notes. That way you can basically take a look at the source code, and the JPL also basically put out a GitHub repo where you can essentially build a model of the rover running open source components.
Okay, so yeah, all that time on Lunar Lander comes in handy then. Remember that software?
I don't.
You don't? Really?
What is Unilander, Martin?
Lunar Lander.
Lunar Lander, yes.
Yes.
That's some sort of autonomous moon vehicle, right?
No, this was a piece of software that when computer games first came out was very popular.
See, Martin, I didn't play games at all.
Well, it's not about it's not just a game. You're landing a lunar lander, right? Which is a very responsible job.
So what's the big deal then?
Right?
What's the big deal then?
The big deal is there's no gravity, or very little, and you have to control your propulsion, right? So do you do this manually, which they did obviously in the 60s, or do you write some programs to do it and so on? So yeah.
60s probably means Fortran as their main driver with regards to programming languages. But it would be interesting to see what sort of operating system that they used. Probably homegrown.
It was quite it's close to the hardware. Super small right back then. I think it's quite well known that the software that ran the lunar lander was like a few kilobytes compared to today's however many gigs it is to run Windows and stuff like that.
Yeah, I can't.
Or even your mobile operating system.
Exactly. For some reason I can recall a quote, and I don't know where I read it in the first place, that actually Apollo 13 has had about the 10th of the computing power of an ordinary nowadays iPhone at their disposal, which doesn't sound to be a lot in terms of memory, core capacity, CPU size, and all the rest of it.
Yeah. No, some reference to the original lunar lander program was written in Focal or something like that, which I don't recall.
In Focal?
That sounds similar to Pascal, but I don't know the differences.
Focal? Some legacy programming language?
Formulating online calculations in algebraic language. There you go. That's what Focal is.
Hang on, Martin. I thought you were younger than me.
Yes.
How come that you know about these things?
I can read. It's quite a handy skill.
Very good, Martin. We are making progress.
Not all knowledge is absorbed by personal experiences.
Some people would consider reading to be a common skill, but hey, what do I know?
Well, I don't know. I think with the young people these days, reading is probably not so much of a skill anymore. It's more of a challenge.
People, you heard it here first. Martin can read. He just read it publicly. Anything else we should know about you, Martin?
I think that's probably enough for one episode.
Fair enough. Okay, back to much safer ground.
Back to the Mars lander, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Why don't we go kind of through, I wouldn't say history, but maybe through some of the major components. Links, of course, will be in the show notes, but I think the rover mostly uses Python for image recognition and processing. I mean, first of all, what are the main difficulties with space travel these days?
What do you mean these days? Has it not always been the same?
Well,
One is it's slow, right? So it takes forever to
true.
get anywhere.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
that's the biggest issue. And then the second one is obviously powering the damn thing. Yep.
Yes. Harsh environmental conditions come to
Yes.
play.
Yeah.
Like near zero temperature, totally lack of any gravity, most of the time anyway.
No atmosphere, so
Yes.
you're more likely to be hit by falling rocks and stuff like that.
Harsh radiation. Don't forget
Radiation,
that.
yes, good point. Yes.
Temperatures we already mentioned,
Mm.
especially on the dark side of the moon and other and other lunar bodies like planets and so forth. If you have a surface that you can land on at all, because some planets, Venus I think features on that list very high, don't even have a solid surface.
Mm.
So I reckon that's probably the reason why not that many spacecraft have gone have gone there. Plus the fact, and this is probably the most important bit, because of the distance, online communication is a bitch.
Well, so again, it takes a long time, right?
So, for example, no, I mean, also the stellar mechanics play against you because, for example, the rover only had about an hour window on each day because of the length of a Martian day compared to an Earth day. Never mind the different rotational speeds and all the rest of it, and generally stellar mechanics, where it could communicate with a significant delay. So that means more and more these vehicles on other planets have to be autonomous for 99% of the time.
Well, I don't know. How far is the moon?
It's not as far as Mars, that's for sure. Couple of million miles, million kilometers. I don't even know.
No, it's less than a million, actually.
Okay, but Mars certainly is in that region.
Yes, yeah, it's a different. But still, so what? I'm just wondering what kind of time we're talking about here. Is it seconds, minutes?
I think communication to Moon and back takes a minute or something.
No, one's a few seconds. Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
The dark side included? Probably not, because you have to bounce it back from the sun.
You'd have to bounce it off. Yes.
And that takes time, Martin. No, it's probably less than a minute, but Mars for sure is more than 1 minute.
Okay, well, it's 140 kilometers or something, million kilometers, so that's quite a lot. Even with light speed.
So that means that these explorer vehicles and all the rest of it, never mind spacecraft. Spacecraft is probably the easier bit, because spacecraft most of the time can fly on autopilot. But once you hit the planet's surface, things will be different.
Yeah. Okay.
No, that's the bottom line. That's probably the biggest challenge.
Yes,
exactly.
Yes.
Of any piece of software that you have to develop if you want to go space.
Well, the good thing about software is that it doesn't weigh anything, but clearly there is also a weight to be considered, a weight and energy, because you got to move the stuff there. And then you got to run it. So the lighter it is, So,
but Martin, you see, the point is, you can't be kind of too generous with the hardware, because as you observed, the stuff most of the time has to run on embedded systems, which are lightweight and don't weigh that much. In terms of probably are not that powerful to begin with.
In terms of CPU power, you mean?
Because because it cannot ship a data center to another planet. As simple as that. And forget about the cloud. The clouds, as we all know, stops short of the stratosphere. This is where clouds actually stop. So forget about clouds on other planets.
Yeah.
Unless you're on Venus or something, I don't know. But I even don't know the going rates there for an hour of a CPU slice or something.
Yeah, well, it's actually had a power PC architecture, the Mars rover.
Plus
And the
the
whole
fact
2
that
gigs of RAM. There you go.
yes,
That is it.
plus the
Sorry,
fact
not
that
RAM, flash memory. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly, plus the fact that most of the systems have to be pretty power efficient for that reasons, because power comes at a premium. Because most of the time you have to rely on external power source like the sun, as in solar panels.
Yeah. Except when you're on the
You
dark side. Yeah.
Yes, exactly, because you cannot carry huge batteries with you because they all weigh, as in lots of kilos. So the more power
So,
efficient you
talking
are,
about kilos,
the
how heavy
better.
is this thing then?
The rover, I don't know.
Okay.
It has
Just curious.
it's the size of a very small subcompact, I think.
The what?
Specs may, it is the size of a very small subcompact in terms of a car.
What's a subcompact? Oh, okay.
Subcompact is more like
It's just for
a
the American
Fiesta or
listeners. Yeah, okay.
sorry, yes, as in like a Beetle.
Oh, don't mention the Beetle. Yeah. You know who invented that one. Anyway, let's carry on.
or the Mini for those listeners.
Okay, Mini
as in
sounds
the
good.
original
Yes.
Mini, yes,
More,
exactly.
yes. Okay, where were we anyway? Mars rover, yes. So
we
Python. What else?
Yeah, we were just discussing the kind of the general outfit of these or the challenges that these vehicles face.
Yep.
No, you see, funny enough, the base, and shame on you, NASA, is actually a proprietary closed-source operating system called VxWorks. As some listeners may know, this is actually I think even hard reason kernel, but running on a variety of hardware, and it's also microkernel architecture. That's probably the reason why I can't even remember it, and it has been quite successfully deployed on various embedded systems. That's probably the reason why NASA chose it. But needless to say, there are open source alternatives out there.
Okay. Well, you want this stuff to be reliable, right? So presumably that's one of the. If you have it as close to the hardware as possible, then that cuts out unnecessary code and yeah.
Martin, no, you don't remember that discussion. I had a very interesting discussion, just a sideline, on Saturday night with a guy in Brussels who apparently, I mean, it was pretty interesting because you remember my friend that I brought to the conference with me?
Matthias.
Ansgar.
Oh, the other guy. Yes.
Yeah. He spotted a guy sitting next to us at a neighboring table, and he had that manual on that table called ADA for C++ programmers. So we started to discuss the advantages or disadvantages of ADA compared to other languages. Now you see funny stuff that because as it turns out, your man was working for the Belgian railway system.
Okay.
And they are apparently just in the process. Obviously, I cannot, for obvious reasons, I cannot mention the guy's name or any further details. But let's put it this way: they are just redesigning a major portion of the scheduling and the general management framework at the moment, and they are really considering ADA for the reason that apparently any code you do in ADA is almost like proven in terms of it's hard to make mistakes. Now, when we kind of start to discuss Rust, he said that Rust is just far too new for them.
Yeah, fair enough.
And ADA apparently goes...
Oh, that's great. Yes. The Dutch Navy used to run its submarines on it as well. Yeah.
No, it doesn't surprise me because I think ADA goes close to something called the common criteria, as in it's a piece of software that is almost proven in terms of
programming language.
Exactly, you can verify the correct functioning of that software, which many programmers do not exhibit.
Okay, how about the Belgium space mission? How's that going?
I do not know.
Oh, okay.
No, I mean, he was just talking about the Belgian rail system. So
okay, fair
that's
enough,
as simple as that.
Okay, cool.
But back to space.
Space, yes.
Yes. You see, what really surprises me, if you take a close look at something called SpaceX. Yes, as we all know, SpaceX belongs actually to a lunatic. Is that the right word? An obsessed fanatic?
Something along those lines, yes.
Yeah, your man who just bought Twitter for an insane amount of money and has now various trials and tribulations to get from his point of view, to get it back on track. Elon, if you're listening,
It's
email address
debatable for the rest of the world, yeah.
Exactly. Elon, if you're listening, the email address is consulting@linuxinlaws.eu. Just get in touch. We can help you.
I see. So you are looking for a job, busy.
No, Martin. No.
I did my best to pimp you out, if possible, but
no, Martin,
unsuccessful so far.
Right? So,
okay. I see.
So, Elon, if you need help with Twitter or some other company, just let us know. I'm sure we can come to an arrangement here. Jokes aside, if you take a very close look at SpaceX, it's probably, and this is the irony, the company that has the most complete open source stack.
Well, compared to who, right?
Yeah, compared to the International Space Station, compared to NASA, compared to ESA and all the rest of them.
What about the Chinese?
What do they have? As in ESA, as in European Space Agency. You see, funny you mentioned China. I tried to, let's put it this way, to suss out some information, but they have this great firewall, so... And it seems to be pretty hardened these days.
Okay, so nothing about balloons either?
No.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, balloons, yes. Yes, we're recording this on the 7th of February. Apparently, the US have just taken down some weather balloon or something else that China claimed was just there to take a look at the weather, and that was pretty much it. Seeing is believing, as they say.
Fair enough.
I mean, Martin, I was just wondering, why would the Chinese be interested in the weather over, say, Connecticut?
Well, weather is a big topic in any country, right?
The US...
everything lives on and dies on, and earthquakes and rain, and you need to grow crops and stuff. So it's all very important. So in Connecticut, they may be growing some grain or some stuff that they need in China, and so they're just checking that there's enough grain coming down.
No, that great
this guessing
is failing, exactly. So the US would have equal rights to launch a balloon or some other craft to take a look at what's happening in Shanghai or Zhengdong or Beijing or something, just for the hell of it.
I don't know. They have satellites, right? Why do they need a balloon?
Take a closer look? I don't know.
I think they got some pretty powerful imagery systems on satellites these days. You don't need a balloon. Yeah.
That of course tells you a lot about Chinese scientific.
Well, in a way, it's a lot cheaper, right, than getting something that just sort of floats a bit higher up than pushing it all the way into space on a permanent basis. But
especially in the fact that you have to what's what I'm looking for? Expect that these things do not return, as history, as in the shenanigans within the last 2 days, show us.
Well, there's previous examples as well, right? I seem to remember some German guy who thought it was a good idea to fill his balloons or cigars full of explodable gas. That didn't go so well.
Yeah, but I mean,
in most cases,
Mr. Zeppelin wasn't in the business of spying on other countries, as far as I can recall. That was the job of the Nazis later on.
Who knows?
History books, Martin. That's what they're called. Anyway, back to space. Back to SpaceX. Now, you see, funny enough, and this is all public knowledge because, for example, there's an interesting Reddit thread on the subject.
Okay.
SpaceX seems to employ...
Doesn't sound very reliable, but carry on.
Well, apparently that Reddit thread was populated, for want of a better expression, by genuine SpaceX engineers, because as part of the thread, they're doing a lot of potential candidate marketing, and to me, that sounds pretty kind of genuine in terms of reliable.
Okay.
So if you take a close look at that thread, never mind reading between the lines, it's a open source stack apart from the proprietary bits that they wrote from the bottom up. So they use a real-time Linux kernel. Essentially, it's vanilla kernel with a specific set of patches, also known as the preempt RT patch, that turns Linux into an almost hard real-time system. Links, of course, will be in the show notes. They use U-boot as their bootloader. They deploy Muzzle as a replacement for the General G GNU libc. And then they, interestingly enough, use Chrome, JavaScript, and some other open source bits to do any UI functionality as a user interface functionality. They use Python for quality assurance, and
PyTest or something.
Probably more than that, actually.
Okay.
And they're also using some other components like libc, like lib standard C++ for their C++ support. And so, by the looks of it, not just going by this Reddit thread, it seems to be a massively distributed parallel system working internally in any SpaceX craft. And needless to say, there are quite a few of them. For example, the reusable launch vehicles alone are Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy, and Starship. And the actual spacecrafts that they use is Dragon 2 and Crew Dragon, among other things. And they seem to rely, and all of them seem to rely on this common FLOSS stack, which is pretty interesting when you think about it.
Well, it's not surprising, really, because you can find open source software for anything, right?
True.
Pick it together, and you have a space exploration device.
So exactly. So if you want to go to Mars, it can't be that tricky. So I mean, you just put.
Apart from the hardware aspect, yeah.
Yes. And you can buy that off the Chinese, I suppose.
Probably.
No, jokes aside. It's funny because if you take a close look at some other sources too, they seem to have the most comprehensive FLOSS stack that there is. When you compare it to the International Space Station, to ESA, to NASA, and all the rest of them. Plus the fact that if you take a close look at the technical requirements, it's not that different, I reckon, from something called a local exchange, as in a telephone computer that is in the business of handling, say, 1 million plus calls per second. Because that's essentially what these systems are. I can recall about 25 years ago, I can recall standing in front of something called XC10 done by Ericsson. Yeah, kind of late 90s, mid 90s. And you were looking at a room full of equipment, like a mainframe computer at the time, but essentially running a massively distributed systems based on Erlang, which was a
Erlang. Great language. Yes, yeah,
exactly.
That was indeed invented by Ericsson. Yeah.
And they pretty much had their own had their own real-time kernel that was actually able to handle that call volume on that system. And these XC computers clocked in, I think, at 1 or 2 digits entry level, so not that far from your ordinary mainframe computer. But there were also
Erlang was indeed an Ericsson, I say invention, but it powers a lot of switches and their routers. But it's also interesting enough. RabbitMQ runs on a Erlang VM as well.
There you go. But RabbitMQ is also available for various operating systems like the POSIX.
But it always comes
OS
with
you have to use. Okay. I thought RabbitMQ was written in C or C++ or something. It's written in Erlang. Okay. Interesting. So you always have to have a VM with Erlang.
No, Erlang, you run RabbitMQ comes with the Erlang VM. Yeah.
So if you're writing a piece of software in Erlang, you have to deploy a virtual machine, like with
Yes.
Java.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. Yes.
Perhaps probably with the portability of the software.
Yeah, it got some really nice properties. Anyway, this is not the Erlang podcast episode. We can come back to that one another time.
Teaser, yeah, there will be in an upcoming episode. There will be something on Erlang. Okay.
Sure. Yeah. No, it's really nice when you look into Erlang. It's the way where it's come from and what it can do. Yep. Anyway.
Yeah, we should probably touch on some remaining projects. Especially if you are looking... PlayStation, yes, Martin. Why don't you tell us about the PlayStation?
PlayStation. International Space Station. Remember that
sorry,
one?
I thought you meant PlayStation.
I don't know. You tell me about PlayStation.
Martin, I don't play games, so...
You don't play games?
No, I don't. No, I really don't. No.
Is this because of your German nature?
No, Martin, some of us have time for that. Some of us don't. Simple as that.
I guess some of us have children. Yeah.
Exactly. So you probably fall in the first category. Anyway, okay. Yeah, the International Space Station uses some open source components. For example, they have some open source data sources. They use Python for geolocation imaging. That was actually a component contributed by NASA. They have actually a Linux system for the remote automated transfer vehicle control. So if you actually fly a rocket to the ISS and that rocket then docks to the ISS because of for refueling, for delivering of goods and all the rest of it, actually this ATV as an automated transfer vehicle is actually powered by Linux. And also I came across...
on that subject, sorry, the SpaceX docking module is written in Go, but yeah, that's just an aside.
Interesting. By the way, did you know when the ISS was launched?
Oh, was that not in the 60s?
No, Martin. No. But not too far off, actually.
It's not far off, actually.
No, the ISS actually has been in orbit for 25 years because it was launched in 98.
98? That late?
International Space Station, yes. Exactly.
I thought it was earlier than that. I vaguely remember it being launched. But...
So, and and funny enough, actually, when preparing...
Have you ever seen it?
Not in person, no.
Oh, right, okay.
I couldn't afford these 1.5 billion that apparently you need for a ticket.
No. When it flies over, you can actually see it. It's that big. The naked eye.
I'm probably more of a bird watcher.
Okay. Fair enough.
You don't need a telescope for that. Okay.
No, it's that big. Yeah. Obviously, you need a clear sky, but yeah.
Exactly what you mean. But you see, I mean, it's not that big.
Well, it's a lot bigger than a plane.
Yes.
And also, the sun shines off it, so it kind of reflects.
But it flies in low orbit. That means what, 20K or something?
Yeah, no, it's easily visible.
Or 30K or something? Yeah. Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, fair enough. So I came across actually something called Leap, which is a legacy GNU project, and that was really invented in the late 90s to port much of the software from Windows 98 that they were using at the time on the ISS to Linux.
Oh dear.
Sorry, Windows 95, not 98. Exactly.
Oh
so links to that repository may be in the show notes. So if you go back, actually activity stopped around 99.
Oh dear. Yeah.
For this Leap project.
Well, it stayed up all this time. Yeah, so that's few blue screens of death and some reboots. And I guess that's the advantage of floating around in space. You got time to restart your machine before it crashes to Earth.
Yeah, that was actually the main reason for Leap, because they observed that they would have to start their Windows 95 systems way too often to make them work. So these GNU people had this idea of putting or replacing Windows 95 with actual Linux to lower the restart frequency, which makes sense from that perspective, I think.
Yeah. Very sensible.
Okay. Probably the last project that we should mention is
Well,
search
not the
for
last, but yes, carry on.
no, I mean from a FLOSS perspective, it's
Ah,
probably it's probably the SETI project, as in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, which has been, I think, an MIT project for the last 50 years or something.
Hmm.
Maybe less. Links, of course, people will be show notes, but the idea is, and that was way before Google even coined the term MapReduce, to use crowd computing power to actually search for extraterrestrial intelligence. So if you install a client called Boink, as in BOINC, on your computer, it will use idle CPU cycles, as in it will kick in when nothing else is running on the CPU, and will process a packet of data that it has retrieved from the command and control center.
not one packet.
When I say
doesn't sound
and
useful.
when I say the command and control center, of course, that means in a good way. No, essentially what it means is basically if you, and that was way before clouds were even looked at, if you want to, because we're looking at what, late 90s or something like this, if you want to search for extraterrestrial intelligence, essentially it's a pattern matching exercise. And you then have a couple of options. One of them is basically to hire a massively expensive cluster of mainframe computers, or, and this is the native kind of cloud approach, you can actually use other people's computers rather. And that's exactly what the SETI at home does. So if you install that client, it basically picks up a data packet, processes it, and then returns the results back to the command and control center.
Yeah, and then like a botnet, really, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. Anyway,
but only in a good way, because it picks up a new data packet that is supposed to analyze, and that's how you spot patterns in a vast distributed data space.
There were similar projects along the lines to do drugs research as well and stuff like that in a distributed way. But yes, there's also a few other projects worth mentioning.
Go ahead, Martin.
Well, slightly closer to home and to the work that I do. There is the European Space Agency, and they use a open source parallel database called Greenplum to put their universe in.
It's one of these legacy things, right?
Well, it depends what you call legacy. Yeah?
Okay. No, it's interesting because I came across Greenplums the ESA has a webpage.
Are you saying that Linux is legacy as well?
Of course it is. And that's nothing wrong with that. No.
Well, legacy normally has a somewhat negative connotation.
Does it? Okay, fair enough. No, actually, I came across
with the hipsters amongst us. Yeah. Carry on.
Who are they? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Okay, no, the ESA actually maintains a web page of building blocks for downstream apps in terms of the components, the FLOSS components that you want to use if you want to build your own app. So Docker is there, Greenplum is there, and all the rest of these open source components. So details are always within the show notes. But it's funny that you mentioned that because quite a few open source databases are on their webpage.
Oh yes, yeah, I think they are. Postgres is one of them as well. Yeah, that's, the Greenplum one was a bit more interesting because it involved a lot of geospatial calculations to find out how far stars are from others, and etc. etc.
The NASA, of course, maintains a similar open source component overview, but it's actually the code that they have contributed themselves. These are, of course, will in the show notes, yes. And we should also probably mention OpenSpace, which is a very, very, very cool visualization stack, purely based on open source, that allows you to take a closer look of what's happening on Mars, what's happening in the solar system, what's happening on the moon, just purely using open source components and running against a server that basically distributes that data for free.
Okay, nice.
Anything else that we should mention before we close this off, Martin? Oh yeah, machine learning probably. Because if you take a close look at kind of reading between the lines now, machine learning is big in space exploration. Probably for the reason that for example, image recognition comes in very handy if you're left to your own devices on a strange planet. Because you don't have that cloud backend on planet Earth at your disposal, because these 5 minutes when you can actually talk to the command and control center, you probably want to send that data that you've just collected during the last 23 hours and 55 minutes back home.
Well,
so most of the time, you're actually left to your own device in terms of what's happening, image recognition. Maybe there's even something moving, all the rest of it. Never mind if you want to fly a vehicle on a planet autonomously and landing offline.
They have wheels, these things, don't they? The rovers.
Yes. Also, exactly. Also driving on a strange planet without any intervention from the outside. Because that's exactly where machine learning comes in handy.
Indeed.
Time for the POCs.
Okay.
Robert, what's your POCs?
Oh, I have many. In fact, I have 3.
Confine yourself exactly to 10 or something.
No, I'll stick to 3. Anyway, on today's subject, my POCs is the War of the Worlds by Wayne, what's his name? Not John Wayne. I'm just thinking John Wayne, but it's not John Wayne. What's his name?
War of Worlds.
War of the Worlds. It's a very famous musical. Jeff Wayne. Sorry, that's it. Yes.
That's a radio play, no?
It was originally a radio play. Yes. And then someone made a very good album about it with Richard Burton doing the voice. When was that?
That record dates back to the 70s, no?
I don't know. I do remember it from growing up. But there is also a stage show going around with some modern interpretation, but at the moment, which is why I thought about it. But they clearly, having grown up with the original album, that's a lot better. Then my other 2 are FOSDEM, for obvious reasons.
Yes.
All free, many open source people coming together and doing good work. And the third one is the Eurostar, because it works really well. And there's not a plane, so it's brilliant.
Yes. Hint to the audience, Martin is easily impressed.
Well, it's just, yeah.
Okay, very good.
I don't like airports, trains are preferable.
You don't like airports? Why is that, Martin?
Well, they're busy and you spend lots of time waiting and queuing. So
and that doesn't happen on National Rail in the UK, okay?
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Either the train runs or it doesn't. Yeah. Well, unless there's someone in front of the train, then they stop it and
exactly.
Sit there for a while.
I'm not talking about the premium prices that you're paying on the Eurostar. I'm talking about your general National Rail service in the UK.
Well, unless there's a strike, it's pretty good, to be honest. It's definitely better than in Germany, for sure.
That's not difficult.
No, I was, I was surprised by the state of the German railway.
Yeah, it used to be different, but about 20 years back, things have really gone down the tube.
What happened?
And
did Anchor come in power? Or?
Yes, that's exactly it. I mean, no, the politicians really screwed it up. Lack of funding. I mean, if you don't fund that sort of system, it goes down the drain. That's exactly what happened.
But you do make a lot of cars in Germany, so maybe that's the reason. I don't know.
But I mean, as we all know, cars are not necessarily the future. Well, there's a little girl called Greta that can tell you all about it. In case
maybe you should get on the show.
Okay.
Yes, your POCs. Carry on.
My POCs. Yes. I'm tempted to mention 2. So my first POCs is the Native Endemic Indian Porn Association.
Okay.
Abbreviated as NEIPA. And of course, many of you who have been following the show will probably notice this NIPA is actually standing for New England Indian Pale Ale. Which is a particular brand of, not brand, but type rather, apologies, which is a particular type of Indian Pale Ale. As a New England style. It's hoppy, it's cloudy because it's not filtered normally, and it's very, very, very tasty because the
not
fruit
remotely
prevails.
taste like beer, then. Yeah.
No,
One of those
it's rather
citrus concoctions.
No, that's exactly it. It's more like a blend of a cocktail and a very hoppy beer.
Hmm.
And if you're into that sort of thing, you will absolutely enjoy it.
Okay.
And my second box is
Are they
actually
sponsoring us by any chance? Or?
No, it's not they, Martin. It's just a type of New England. It's just a type
Oh,
of
I see.
IPA.
No
From the
company in
brewery, no.
particular. That's a
So,
shame.
for example, Brewdog has something called Hazy Jane, which is pretty close to a proper New England IPA.
Hmm.
And you check out Untapped. For those few listeners out there who do not know what Untapped is, just go to your favorite mobile app store, as in Google Play or what's called on the iPhone. It's not iTunes anymore. It's what? It's Apple applications or something. It used to be. Martin, you have an iPhone, no?
Mm-hmm.
And the name of the place and the name of the app store is
The App Store.
the App Store.
Yes. Yeah.
I thought it was "Don't Ask Me" or something. Okay, no, jokes aside. If you go to the App Store and on the iPhone, you'll find it. And essentially, it's an app that allows you to rate beer. Just search for New England IPAs, and you'll find plenty of them. Okay, my other box is a radio show called Planet Money, done by, of course, National Public Radio. It's an alternative view on economic subjects from a US perspective, but much more on the communist side than your ordinary Fox or CNN or other MSNBC or whatever is tempted to put in front of you. I won't give away too much. Links, of course, will be in the show notes, but if you're looking for a fresh take on economic subjects, just not in the US, but globally, this is a show to listen to. It's broadcasts weekly. And of course, either use the NPR app or use your favorite podcatcher to download it. And that's pretty much it for my pogs.
Very good.
And with that, thank you for listening. Martin, we don't have feedback, do we? We do.
Oh,
Luna,
yes, we do.
If you're listening, pleasure meeting you at FOSDEM.
Yes.
Luna, if you're listening,
Luna, yes.
Meeting you at FOSDEM,
Indeed.
especially in person, by the way. And Mrs. Bly, if you're listening, I'm still waiting for that message with regards to getting Fedora on the show. Really looking forward to it. And Fedora, keep up the good work, and that of course goes for any other Linux distribution that is out there.
I thought you were going to say I'm still waiting for that message for my date.
No,
a different matter altogether. Okay, fair enough.
no different.
You're not talking about the Frankfurt lady that you were chatting up then.
Martin, no, chatting up doesn't capture it because A, it was a professional conversation. And B,
it's all in the line of work. Very good. Yes,
exactly. And B, she was way too young.
Okay.
Because she was actually way younger than 40. So that would make it a 30-year difference, and that's not going to happen.
You're just too old, in other words. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
Indeed, Martin. I mean, you know yourself looking in the mirror any particular morning.
Oh, I avoid that. It's not good for you.
Exactly, Martin. Exactly.
Handy tip. Don't look in the mirror. You heard it here first.
So if you don't want to spoil your day, don't look in the mirror, especially if you're Martin Visser. Exactly. Okay, and with that, we can probably close the show. And people, thank you for listening, and see you soon.
See you later.
At the next episode. This is the Linux In-Laws.
You come for the knowledge,
but stay for the madness.
Thank you for listening.
This podcast is licensed under the latest version of the Creative Commons license, type Attribution Share Alike. Credits for the intro music go to Blue Sea Roosters for their song Salute Margaret, to Twin Flames for their piece called The Flow, used for the segment intros, and finally to Celestial Ground for their song Sweet Justice, used by the Dark Side. You find these and other ditties licensed under CC at Jamendo, a website dedicated to liberate the music industry from choking copyright legislation and other crap concepts. And funny enough, we are recording already. So, and rolling. This is in-laws. No, we can't.
Linux in-laws.
Sorry, yes. Welcome and rolling once again. Welcome to in-laws. Fuck!
Shall I do it? You seem to be struggling a little bit.
Okay, Mark, why don't you do it? And rolling. Space, the final frontiers. These are the adventures. Fuck. Space, the final frontier. This is no record, but it might as well be one. Like this. Always look on the bright side of space. Always look on the bright side of space. Space, the final frontier. These are the Voyagers. Fuck. Beam me up, Scotty. There is no intelligent life down here, especially not used for recording this podcast.